commander of Earth's orbital fleets, slammed her fist against the table. We need to act first. Strike before it does. Strike at what? Snapped Dr. Arthur Liang, lead researcher of TDI's Xeno Threat Division. Do you even understand what we're dealing with? This isn't an enemy we can fight. It doesn't use ships or soldiers or weapons. It just takes. We don't know that, Vasquez growled. We don't know anything. And that's the problem, Reed interrupted. His voice was steady, but there was an edge of something else, something dark. The rest of the galaxy was wiped away like dust. And yet, we're still here. Not because we're stronger, not because we're smarter, Heeks howled, because it chose to leave us. A cold silence followed. President Darius Okoye of the Terran Union, one of the few civilian leaders still in power, steepled his fingers. Then the question we must answer is simple, he said slowly. Why? Dr. Liang hesitated before speaking. There is a theory. Spit it out, Vasquez said. Liang licked his lips. What if it doesn't see us the way it saw the others? His voice lowered. What if to it we're not like the rest of the galaxy? What if we're something new? Reed frowned. New how? Liang hesitated again. Humans have something no other species does. It's not intelligence. It's not technology. He met their eyes. It's adaptation. Vasquez scoffed. Every species adapts. No, not like us. Ling leaned forward. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. The rules invaded. And we didn't just fight back. We stole their technology, turned it against them, and wiped them out. Every time humanity has faced extinction, we evolved into something stronger, more dangerous. We refused Todi. The room was silent. Liang continued, his voice shaking slightly. Whatever this thing is, it erases entire species without a trace. But us, he swallowed. We see it, we feel it. Maybe we're the first ones who've ever noticed it watching. And maybe, his voice dropped to a whisper, maybe that means we have the ability to fight back. Reed leaned back in his chair. The thought was unsettling. If Liang was right, then humanity wasn't being ignored. They were being studied, tested. And the worst part, they had no idea what would happen if they failed. Then the lights flickered. The room went dark and a new message appeared on every screen. You were right. A chill ran through Reed's spine. Liang paused. Oh no, we will see what you become. The message faded. The lights returned. The war room was silent, but the meaning was clear. Humanity had been given a choice. To evolve or to disappear like the rest. Reed's voice was grim. Prepare the fleet because for the first time in history, Earth would not wait for the unknown to come to them. They were going to war. The preparations for war began immediately. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this. The rules in war had been brutal, but at least there had been a fight. An enemy fleet, an empire to dismantle, a war to be won. This question mark. This was something else entirely. How do you fight something that doesn't exist in any conventional sense? The Terran Defense Initiative went into full mobilization. Every warship in the Sol system was refitted with the most advanced technology Earth had to offer. Every scientist, engineer, and strategist worked around the clock to decipher the impossible. No one slept. No one rested. And in the heart of it all, Jackson Reed watched the stars. It had been weeks since the last message. No new disappearances had been reported. No new worlds lost. No further signs that the unseen, as the Voron had called them, had made their move. It was like the entire galaxy was holding its breath. And humanity was left standing at the edge of the abyss, waiting for something to push them in. Deep beneath the Martian surface, in the most secure research facility ever built, Dr. Arthur Liang and his team worked on what couldn't be described as madness. We can't kill something we wouldn't understand, Liang had said weeks ago. But maybe we can change the rules of the game. The project code Cometico was theoretical at best. It was based on the terrifying assumption that the unseen didn't just erase civilizations. It rewrote reality itself. The disappearances weren't simple destruction. They were a complex fundamental undoing of existence. As if those planets, those species had never been there to begin with. Which meant if humanity wanted to fight back, they needed to rewrite reality too. Status? Reed asked as he entered the lab, his presence demanding immediate attention. Liang turned, dark circles under his eyes, fingers twitching from too much caffeine and too little sleep. We're close. Too close, honestly. Reed frowned. Explain. Liang exhaled, running a hand through his disheveled hair. We built the device. It works, but he hesitated. It's responding. The room went still. Reed's jaw tightened. Responding? Liang swallowed. Every time we activate a test pulse, we get a feedback signal from somewhere. It's like it knows what we're doing. Reed's heart pounded in his chest. And Liang's voice was barely above a whisper. And it's watching us back. The decision was made. Protocol Black shifted into its final stage. The First Fleet, Echo 1, was deployed toward the last known location of a vanished planet. The plan was simple. Trigger the device, force a response, and see what happened. It was the most reckless, dangerous, and outright suicidal operation in human history. And yet Echo 1 went willingly. Humanity had never been the strongest species in the galaxy. They had never been the most advanced. But they had something new their species had. The will to fight, even in the face of something beyond comprehension. Reed stood aboard the bridge of the UNSV Valiant, Earth's most powerful warship. The fleet was in position. The device was primed. Every screen, every sensor, every weapon system was locked onto the empty void where a planet should have been. And then Reed gave the order. Activate Echo. A pulse of energy rippled outward, warping the very fabric of space itself. For a moment, nothing happened. The stars remained cold and distant. The silence of the void pressed down on them like an ocean of darkness. Then the screaming began. It didn't come from Thecoms. It didn't come from the speakers. It came from inside their heads, thousands of voices overlapping a chorus of something ancient and hungry. Theship's lights flickered. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting and writhing like living things. The fabric of reality itself shuddered. And then they saw it. The void opened. It wasn't a portal. It wasn't a wormhole. It was something else. A tear in existence. A wound in the universe. And from within, something gazed back. Not a ship, not a fleet, not an army, just eyes. Too many to count, too large to comprehend. Reed felt his mind fracture under the weight of that gaze. His body locked in place, his thoughts unraveling. It was looking at him. It was looking at all of the man then, for the first time in its unknowable existence. It spoke, "Show us." The void pulsed. The ship's systems went dead and the fleet was gone. Earth waited. The last transmission from Echo 1 was received 6 hours ago. No response since. No signs of the fleet. They were alone. Or Sathi thought. Then a single transmission came through. One word, a single whispered message. Survive. The transmission was traced. It was coming from the Valiant. And the Valiant no longer existed in known space. Humanity had made first contact. Now the real war would begin. The Valiant drifted in the void. Or at least it felt like drifting. There were no stars, no planets, no points of reference. Just an endless stretch in darkness that swallowed all sense of direction. Reed had no idea how long they had been here. The ship's systems were unresponsive. The crew was silent. their minds still reeling from the sheer wrongness of whatever had just happened. And yet, he was still alive. That was first sign that something had changed. Because if the unseen had erased entire civilizations without a trace, if it had swallowed entire species into nothingness, then why was he still breathing? Why was his ship still intact? Show us. The words still echoed in his mind, whispered in a voice that wasn't sound, but something deeper, something imprinted into his very thoughts. They were being tested. That realization sent a shiver down Reed's spine. He had been prepared for destruction. He had been ready to fight and die. But this was something else. Status report. He managed his voice. For a long moment, there was no response. Then slowly his officers snapped out of their daze, shaking off the weight of whatever had gripped them. "Systems are partially operational," said Santos, her voice trembling. "I don't know how, but we have power again," Reed frowned. "Weapons, non-functional engines, dead communications." Santos hesitated. "That's the strange part, sir." She turned to face him, her expression grim. "We're receiving transmissions." Reed's pulse quickened. From where? Santos swallowed. Everywhere. A cold dread settled in Reed's stomach. "Define everywhere." Santos's hands trembled as he brought up the data. "We're picking up distress signals, multiple frequencies, some in known languages, some in ones that don't exist anymore." Reed's breath caught in his throat. He moved to the main screen, watching as Santos displayed the transmissions. Some were recent. Some were thousands of years old. Some came from species that had been erased from history. And some were in human languages. "Impossible," whispered Vasquez. "That's impossible." Reed's hands clenched into fists. The unseen hadn't just watched civilizations vanish. It had kept them, or at least echoes of them. And now it had taken Echo 1 into the same place. Was this where the lost civilizations had gone? Were they still here, trapped in this place? Had humanity just crossed into something far beyond life and death? Then the darkness shifted. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a movement. It was something. The Galactic Council had long regarded Earth as a trivial outpost, a planet of quarrelsome beings who wasted their resources, waged petty wars, and barely pushed their technology past the reach of their own moon. For ages, the ruling species of the stars, the Cathri, the Draw, the Voron, dismissed Earth as little more than an afterthought, a speck without weight in the endless dark. The Cathri, vast crystalline giants, had examined Earth eons ago and judged it biologically insignificant. The Draw, machine-limbed conquerors of countless systems, deemed Earth a stone too primitive to claim. The Voron, an elder race with lifespans stretching into eternity, saw humanity as volatile, rash, and beneath notice. And so Earth was ignored. Alone. But everything shifted the day the Ru-Zaran Empire made the fatal error of invading. The Ru-Zarans were a savage battle-forged species, their dominion spanning hundreds of systems. They lived for conquest, believing that only the strong deserved to survive. They had crushed the Trellan revolt in days, shackled the once proud Balinari into slavery, and even wiped the relentless Gaths from existence. When their armadas swept into the Sol system, they anticipated another effortless conquest. They were mistaken. The first blow landed without warning. Orbital firestorms leveled entire cities, erasing millions in mere hours. The Galactic Council stood idle, convinced Earth would fall like countless worlds before. They expected swift surrender. Instead, humanity rose in defiance. Within hours of the assault, human defenders struck back with a ferocity that stunned the stars. They weren't simply holding ground, they were counterattacking. Every street became a fortress of resistance. Every block a battlefield. The Ru-Zarans expected submission. What they received was defiance. The Council had witnessed resistance before, but never like this. Human pilots, flying craft outmatched by Ru-Zaran warships, began slamming into enemy hulls in suicidal runs. Soldiers fought in savage close combat with whatever they had: guns, blades, fists, anything to drag an enemy down. And when nuclear weapons were unleashed upon the invaders, the galaxy itself recoiled. Humanity did not dread annihilation. For the first time in their campaigns, the Ruzurans faltered. Their fleets, their legions, their overwhelming technological dominance. It made no difference. Humanity didn't fight for conquest or survival. They fought with something the galaxy had never witnessed before: unyielding, indomitable. Then came the counterstrike. Human scientists, engineers, and tacticians, once derided as primitive, began assimilating alien technology at a staggering pace. They didn't just resist. They adapted, they innovated, and they wielded the enemy's own weapons against them. Within weeks, human operatives infiltrated Ruzaran command vessels. Within months, entire Ruzaran armadas were falling to ambush and annihilation. The Galactic Council could only watch in dread as the unthinkable unfolded. Earth was not breaking. The Ruzaran Empire was unraveling, their colonies reduced to ash. Their warships were hunted down and obliterated. Then the unthinkable became reality. The Ruzaran homeworld, the very core of their empire, was left defenseless. Humanity, relentless in vengeance, unleashed devastation upon it. Thewer had ended. The Ruzarans were erased. And the galaxy's gaze shifted to Earth with new fear. The Council had once dismissed Earth as insignificant. Now they grasped its truth. Earth was not merely another world. It was a warning. In the wake of that war, the stars fell silent in uneasy dread. The once mighty Ruzaran dominion had been wiped away, its fleets broken, its cradle reduced to a poisoned wasteland. Never before had the galaxy seen auspices rise so fast, adapt so fiercely, and strike back with succulent fury. The Galactic Council convened an emergency summit, its vast chambers buzzing with hushed voices and uneasy stares. The Cathari, the Voran, the Draw, and a dozen other ruling species of the galaxy faced a chilling reality. Humanity was no longer an insignificant curiosity. They had become the most volatile force in Thekosmos. They are unlike any race we have ever known, declared High Chancellor Vostel of the Voran. They don't bend. They do not yield. And worse, his luminous green eyes narrowed. They adapt. The Cathari envoy, crystalline body flickering with agitation, agreed. The humans seized the invaders' weapons and refined them. That is what terrifies me. They did not merely endure the Ruzarans. They absorbed them. The Draw warlord, half flesh and half machine, snarled. We should have annihilated them when the chance was ours. His words silenced the hall. It was the thought no one dared speak aloud. Earth had shifted from irrelevance to aethrid overnight. Yet, despite the fear, no one dared strike first. The humans had not carved an empire. They had not demanded tribute or enslaved the stars. They had taken vengeance and then stopped. That restraint unsettled the Council more than conquest. Humanity was not fueled by the Draw's lust for dominance, nor the Voran's patient schemes of expansion. No-humans had proven themselves something far more dangerous. They were unpredictable. And then came the signal. A single transmission, broadcast from Earth's newly rebuilt capital. Brief, direct, and more dreadful than any war cry. Where remember. With those two words, the galaxy grasped the truth of what they had unleashed. Earth had been assaulted. Humanity had been belittled. And now, every empire knew that should another ever test them, there would be no mercy. The stars would not forget the day they witnessed Earth's wrath. Because humanity never would. Life in the galaxy limped forward. Trade lanes reopened, treaties renewed, rivalries rimmed their silent games of power. Yet beneath it all, fear endured. Humanity had reshaped everything. The Vortian masters of diplomacy sought outreach. Their emissaries landed on Earth, hoping to heal divisions, to study those once dismissed as irrelevant. What they found was a world reborn at staggering speed. Cities once ruined, rebuilt with ruthless precision. Orbiting defenses, planetary shields, and fortified stations protected every human stronghold. Humanity was rejoicing. It was bracing for the next war. "We seek no conflict," the Voran envoy pleaded. Earth's leaders replied, cold and certain, "Neither did we." The Kathiri tried another path. They offered Earth a seat on the Galactic Council, an honor no young race had ever been given. But when the human delegation arrived at the Council's Great Hall, they did not come with gratitude. They came with demons. The Council watched as Earth burned, spoke Ambassador Adrien Wells, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "You dismissed our suffering as insignificant. You assumed we would crumble, and now you offer us a seat, not out of goodwill, but out of fear." The assembled species shifted uncomfortably. The humans were right. "We accept," Wells continued, his piercing gaze scanning the room. "But understand this, humanity is not here, Tobo. We are here to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens again. Not to us, not to anyone. It wasn't a speech. It was a warning." From that day forward, Earth's presence reshaped the balance of power. Humanity was to be a passive member of the galaxy. Where the Council hesitated, humans acted. When pirate fleets raided fenceless colonies, it was human warships that responded first. When corrupt empires sought to exploit weaker species, human soldiers arrived to defend them. Some called them protectors. Others called them idlers, but no one dared to call them weak. And then the whispers began. Deep in the outer systems, beyond the reach of the Council, something was stirring. Ships were vanishing. Entire colonies were going dark. At first, the Council dismissed the rumors as mere pirate activity. But the humans knew better. They had seen war. They had seen conquest. And they recognized the signs. Something was coming, and this time humanity would not wait for the first strike. They would be ready. The signs were subtle at first. Freighters failing to check in. Distress signals abruptly cut off. Frontier colonies going silent one by one. The Galactic Council dismissed it as typical fringe sector instability, blaming pirates, navigational errors, or local conflicts. But humanity had learned a hard lesson from the Rule Zaran War. The first warning signs of a disaster were always ignored until it was too late. And so, while the rest of the galaxy remained complacent, Earth prepared. The newly formed Terran Defense Initiative, TDI, launched a series of scouting missions into the uncharted regions beyond Council space. These were not official, nor were they sanctioned. Humanity had learned that when danger lurked in the void, the Council preferred to look the other way. But Earth could not afford such ignorance. Captain Jackson Reed of the UNS V. Argos, a state-of-the-art reconnaissance vessel, led the first mission into the dead expanse, a vast region of space where ships had been disappearing. The Argus had the best stealth technology humanity had ever seen engineered from its conquered enemies. It could slip between star systems unnoticed, its sensors piercing the darkness in search of the unknown. It took only 3 days before they found it. A derelict Vorian colony ship floated aimlessly near the edge of a aging star system. It was massive, capable of carrying 500,000 Vortan citizens. There was no distress beacon, no signs of battle damage. It was simply abandoned. Reed ordered his team to board. The moment they stepped inside, the silence was suffocating. The ship was intact, its system still humming with faint energy. Halliton meals sat entouched in the mess halls. Doors remained open as if their occupants had simply walked away mid-step. But there were no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. It was as if every living thing had simply vanished. Heart was hammering. The team moved quickly, but the whispering grew louder. The ship, once silent, now creaked and groaned as if awakening from a deep slumber. Shadows twisted unnaturally, stretching and shifting where there should have been no movement. Then Santa screamed. She staggered, clutching her helmet, eyes wide in terror. "It's inside. It's watching." Reed grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the exit. The whispering became a roar, an overwhelming storm of incomprehensibles that clawed at their thoughts. The walls of the ship seemed to pulse, the metal flexing as if something massive was shifting beneath its surface. They barely made it to the shuttle. As soon as they were aboard, Reed barked, "Get us out of here." The pilot, hands shaking, launched the shuttle at full burn. As they cleared the docking bay, the Argus fired its main guns, sending searing energy beams into the derelict ship. It shuddered, the metal screaming as it twisted inward, folding into itself as if being devoured by an invisible force. Then it was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. The Argus wasted no time escaping system. Reed's report to High Command was marked Urgent Existential Threat Potential. Within hours, Earth's leadership convened an emergency meeting. The galaxy believed it was at peace. Humanity knew better. Something was in the void. Something ancient, something patient, and now it knew humanity had seen it. The briefing room aboard the UNSV Titan was silent. It was kind of silence that came when people were faced with something too big, too terrifying to fully comprehend. Ken Jackson Reed sat at the head of the table, his hands clenched as he replayed the footage from the Argus mission. The council representatives sat in stunned horror, their faces pale, their bodies tense. The VOR's ambassador, High Chancellor Vaushel, had not spoken since the recording began. His species had ruled for millennia, witnessing wars, disasters, even planetary extinctions, but nothing like this. The Voran colony ship had been one of their largest and most advanced. It should have been impossible for it to simply disappear. And yet, it had. "This cannot be real," the Cathri delegate muttered, his crystalline body dimming in distress. "There is no force in this galaxy capable of that." Reed leaned forward. His voice was steady, controlled. "Then explain what happened, because I saw it with my own eyes. My crew felt it." The Vorchan definitely spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "The writing on the walls." He exhaled sharply. "We have seen it before." The room froze. "What?" Reed's eyes narrowed. Vaushel hesitated, then continued. "It is ancient, older than our records, older than even the Draw archives. There are legends of entire civilizations vanishing without a trace, but we always believed they were myths." He paused. "We call it the unseen." A chill settled over the room. The Draw representative scoffed, but there was a nervous twitch in his mechanical eye. Superstitious nonsense. Some kind of anomaly? A spatial collapse? An unknown weapon? Do we have a weapon that can do this? Reed interrupted, locking eyes with the Draw warlord. The alien's response was silence. Reed pressed on. "This is not a myth. We found that colony ship. It wasn't destroyed. It was empty. And then it wasn't there anymore." He took a slow breath. "If your legends are true, then we need to know everything." Vaushel hesitated again. Then finally, he spoke. "Long before our time, there were others," he said. "Empires that spanned stars, species that ruled unchallenged. They believed themselves invincible." His eyes darkened. "Then, one by one, they vanished. No war, no destruction, just gone," Reed frowned. "And no one thought to warn the rest of the galaxy." "They did," Vostel's voice was grim. "They left messages. The same words your people found on that ship. It sees. It waits. It knows. Silence. It was the Cathri who finally broke it." "We have been arrogant," he murmured. "For so long. We have believed ourselves the masters of the stars. But something else has been watching, waiting." Reed clenched his jaw. He had seen wars. He had seen planets burn, seen entire species wiped from existence. But this was something else, something worse. It wasn't an enemy they could fight. It was something beyond war, beyond weapons, a predator. The Galactic Council scrambled. They dispatched ships, probed the dark corners of space, sent their best scientists to analyze the anomaly. But the disappearances continued. Ships, stations, entire planets, gone without a trace. And then the message came. It wasn't transmitted through radio waves. It wasn't intercepted by any known system. It appeared all at once in every database, every console, every starship across the galaxy. A single sentence burned into every screen, every language in letters that seemed to twist and shift like something alive. You have been seen. Humanity had spent so long to avenge itself to the galaxy, showing that it was not weak, not to be underestimated. Now they had the galaxy's attention. But something else had noticed them too, and it was coming. Panic spread like wildfire. The message had appeared everywhere at once. Every species, every colony, every station, every single being in the galaxy had seen those words. You have been seen. There was no known technology that could have accomplished this. Not even the most advanced civilizations had the ability to bypass encrypted networks on a galactic scale. The message wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It was something far worse. It was a statement of fact. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council declared a state of universal emergency. Armadas were mobilized, colonies fortified, and border systems evacuated. But where would they run? What were they even preparing to fight? No one knew except humanity. The moment the message appeared, Earth's response was immediate. The Terran Defense Initiative initiated Protocol Black, a plan that had been theorized, but never used until now. Every major city was placed under martial law. Every military asset was deployed. Every scientist, engineer, and strategist was called upon to prepare for what was coming. Humanity had learned far too late that they had not been alone in the dark. They had never been alone. And then the first world vanished. It was a draw colony home to over 7 billion souls. There was no warning, no distress calls, no signs of an attack. One moment it was there. The next its star system was empty. No debris, no wreckage, no survivors. It had simply ceased to exist. The draw were not an emotional species. They were warlords, conquerors, a civilization forged in battle. But now they were afraid. The Voa's home world was next. The Voas were among the oldest races in the galaxy. They had survived supernovas, galactic wars, extinction of catastrophes. Their planet had stood for millions of years. It was considered untouchable. And yet within a single breath of time, it was erased. Not destroyed, not invaded, just gone. The Council fell into chaos. Entire fleets went dark. High-ranking officials disappeared. The galactic economy collapsed overnight. What was once a collection of proud, wearing species had been reduced to terrified, scrambling observers. And all the while the messages continued. You have been seen. You have been measured. You have been found wanting. Then came the nightmares. At first, only a few reported them. Fleeting, eerie visions of something vast and endless lurking in the void. But soon the reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Creatures without form. Shadows that slithered through the edges of consciousness. A presence that could not be described, only felt. No one knew what it was, only that it was watching. And then Earth received a second message. This time, it wasn't broadcast to the galaxy. It did not appear on every screen. It was sent directly to humanity. Only humans saw the words. Only humans heard the voice. You were reticent. It was the first and only time the message had changed. And that was what terrified humanity the most. The rest of the galaxy had been judged. And now the question remained, would humanity be spared? Or had they merely caught the interest of something far, far worse? The universe had gone silent. What was once a galaxy teeming with life, conflict, and politics had been reduced to whispers of terror. Entire civilizations were vanishing like footprints in a storm. Great fleets, planetary defense networks, ancient fortresses, all useless. And yet, Earth remained untouched. The Galactic Council no longer existed. What remained of its member species had fractured into desperate enclaves, hiding in deep space stations in forgotten corners of the void. No longer rulers, no longer conquerors, only prey, waiting for their turn to disappear. But humanity had been given a message unlike the others. You are different. It was a statement, a declaration, a choice. And Earth had no idea what it meant. The Terran Defense Initiative's war room was buried deep beneath the surface of Mars, hidden behind layers of reinforced alloys, electromagnetic shielding, and quantum encryption barriers. It was the most secure location in the Sol system, yet despite all its technology, all its security, it could not stop the fur that hung over the room like a thick fog. High Marshal Jackson Reed sat at the head of the table, his face drawn with exhaustion. Across from him, leaders from every surviving human government, military branch, and scientific division waited for the one thing no one wanted to say aloud. What do we do? Admiral Vasquez,